Hey everybody, my name is Diane Gale and I am the author of the blog SustainableSlowLiving.com. And today I want to talk to you about making garden plans. I'm filming this outside because I just think that it's nice to be able to film this outside. It's a beautiful, beautiful day, almost January 2023. And I'm hoping that the background noise isn't going to be too much. There's a lot of traffic, and because of how beautiful it is, the snow is melting off the roofs like mad. But this seems like an appropriate place for us to talk about making garden plans in the winter. I do want to tell you right from the start that I'm not a seasoned gardener. I have had gardens for 2 of the last 3 years, and I had a garden many, many years ago. 28 years ago, I think. I think that it would be silly to present myself as an expert on gardening, and I think that anyone would see through that farce pretty quickly anyway. So I'm not here to talk to you about gardening from the perspective that I know all there is to know. I'm just here to share with you what I've learned in the little bit of time that I have had gardens, and in the whole lot of time that I have dreamt of having gardens. So there are several things that you can do in the winter time to plan your garden. And it's a time when gardening is kind of hands-off for most people, so it's a great time to plan. The first thing that I want to talk to you about that you can do very easily in the winter is to decide what you need to grow. It is so easy to get lost in seed catalogs and to just start saying, you know, I'm going to grow this and I'm going to grow that and look at this plant and look at that plant. It really is easy to just get all caught up in it. I do it all the time, and I'm not saying that it's bad to get all caught up in it, because I love to dream with a seed catalog. I can lose myself in that for hours. But what I'm saying is, if you do not already have well-established gardens and you are not already growing everything that you need to grow that you and your family eat, and you're just getting started, you've only been doing this a couple years, or maybe this is your first year, it's really important to decide what you need to grow. So start to think about what you actually eat. What are you already buying at the grocery store? If you're not buying beans at the grocery store, then you don't need to grow beans. But if you're buying beets and you're buying onions and you're buying cauliflower, then those are things that you want to consider growing. So really, really consider what you need. And then if you have the space and you have the desire, maybe pick a plant or two that you're going to grow just for fun, right? Like when I was thinking I was going to be in North Carolina this coming year, I wanted to grow loofahs because I thought that growing loofahs would be fun. I don't know if I ever would have grown loofahs more than 1 year, but I wanted to grow them. I wanted to see if I could, and I wanted to experiment with some of the things I could do with them. And there's nothing wrong with taking on one little project like that, but don't let those projects tumble, because gardening involves a lot of work. And you want to get down what you need to grow in order to be sustainable before you start to kind of branch out to things that are really kind of just for fun. And the next thing that I'd like to talk to you about is shopping for seeds. So I just said a little bit about that, right? You don't want to get too carried away, but dream all you want, because that's one of the best parts of gardening. But when it comes right down to it, you need to shop for your seeds, decide what you're going to grow, and shop for your seeds. And about now is the time that you want to really start doing that. Seed companies can run out of seeds very quickly. And to the best of my knowledge, that started with the pandemic. But I am not certain that there hasn't always been kind of a time frame to do your seed shopping. I really don't know, because I'm not a seasoned gardener, but I do know that with the pandemic and the following years, seed companies can run out of seeds very quickly, and so you want to look at what you need now, choose what you want and where you're going to get it from, and get your orders in so that when you want to start your seeds, you have what you need to start. And then another thing that you can do very easily in the winter is to plan your space. So whether you already have space and you're just looking at little additions that you can put in here or there, or whether you're starting a brand new space, you need to plan out your garden beds, where they're going to go and what they're going to have in them. For me, when I did my garden beds in the past few years, a 4-foot by 8-foot bed was about the perfect size. 8 foot was long enough for my space. I thought that 8 foot made it very easy to navigate around the beds instead of, having a 16-foot bed. And 4 foot is pretty great because from either side of the bed, you can reach more than 2 feet in. So there's not any part of the bed in the center that you can't really reach. And then I did a lot of little beds here and there. I did a 2-foot square bed that I just had basil in because I use a lot of basil. I did a 4x4 bed that I had 4 different herbs in. A couple 4x4 beds, one I had my zucchini in and one I had my yellow squash in. And I did some big containers that I had an extra tomato and some ground cherries in them. So you can plan whatever it is you're going to do, but you want to decide what you're going to put in and where you're going to put it. This year I'm hoping to grow some vining beans over a trellis. We'll see how that goes. And what you want to consider when you're planning your beds out is you want to consider how big each plant gets, right? Because you want to have space for it. But not only do you want to have space for it, you want to make sure that you're not planting a plant like a tomato that's going to grow really big and pretty large in a place where it's going to shade the other plants that are around it. So you want your taller plants. Say your sun is coming from this direction, so you're going to want your taller plants over here, and then you're going to want them to go lower as they get toward the sun so that they will get enough sun. So you want to consider how big they're going to be and whether or not they're going to block sunlight from other plants. And then you want to look at whether or not the things that you're planting in any particular space are compatible with one another. Because some plants aren't compatible with one another. And there's not a lot of sense in working on a bed and getting plants in when they're not going to be compatible with one another, and they're either going to fail or just not do very well. It's kind of a waste of your energy. So consider that as well when you're planning out your garden space. And probably my second favorite thing to do in the winter when I'm making garden plans, my first would be seed shopping because I just have an affinity for seed catalogs. But my second is making plant markers. You know, you always think that you're going to remember what you planted where, right? It's kind of like when you stick a mason jar full of something in, particularly when you're making like herbal tinctures, and you make these herbal tinctures and you're going to remember what you made. And you go ahead and you stick them in a cabinet, and when you take them out later, you don't remember what you made. And that's how plants are. And if you're a seasoned gardener, you may recognize your little plants when they're coming up. And even if you're not a seasoned gardener, as they get bigger, you may be able to identify them. But it's just so much easier to make plant markers and mark your plant rows so that you know what's there. And that can be as simple as picking up some craft sticks at the dollar store or saving some popsicle sticks and writing on them with a marker. Or you can make your own. And that's where the fun comes in for me, because I'm crafty and I love to do those things. And there are tons of them out there on the internet, so you can look around and you can see what you can make and have fun with it. I did do a post last year on making garden markers, and my garden markers are very rustic and primitive looking. I love them. I think they have great charm. They are they're a little difficult to make. Once you make a few and you get in the swing of it, they're easy. But really, they were a little hard to wrap. But I'm going to put a link for them down below so you can check them out. And I will tell you this. They can be very easy because they were stones that were painted and had the name of the plant on it, and then they were attached to a stick with jute twine, and you can skip the stick and the jute twine. You can take little stones, you can just paint them, and you can just set them in the dirt by your rows of plants. Easy peasy, simple to do, lots of fun. So I'll put that link down below and you can check that out if you want, or you can surf the web, or you can grab some craft sticks at the dollar store, whatever works for you. But getting your garden markers ready is a great thing to do in the winter time when you're making garden plans. And this season is also a great time to expand your gardening knowledge. And there is a wealth of information out there. There are tons of books available if you like books. I love books. There are tons of YouTube videos. There are tons of podcasts. And YouTube videos and podcasts are really great because you can put them on, you know, while you're doing things around the house, and maybe you're not paying 100% attention to them, but you're kind of absorbing the information naturally because you're hearing it in the background. And sometimes you'll just stop and listen. So I love YouTube videos and podcasts. I think they're a great way to learn. There are Facebook groups available for gardening, you know, and you join one and just get to know some of the people on there that are helpful and that like to share their knowledge, you know, and ignore the trolls, and you can pick up a lot. This year, I am trying to learn about squash bugs because I had some trouble with them in the past years, and that's a good way to decide what you're going to learn about. Something that you've had trouble with, or if you're new to gardening, something that you catch in a YouTube video or a podcast that can be a problem, or other gardeners in your area say they have trouble with something, right? That's something you want to learn about. So squash bugs are definitely on my list of expanding my knowledge. And I also want to learn about growing tomatoes in containers because plants are not that easy to grow in containers, and I'm probably going to be doing a lot of that this year. And my tomatoes are very important to me. And I did have a container garden. I totally forgot about that. That was another year I had a garden. That I had tomatoes planted that year, and they were a total fail. I had the most beautiful tomato plants that I've ever seen. They were so gorgeous. The color, they were lush, they were wonderful, and I didn't get hardly any tomatoes, and I mean hardly any at all. Like, I just got a handful of tomatoes. And I guess it was because I wasn't watering and feeding them enough, mostly feeding them enough. So anyway, tomato plants in containers are another place that I intend to expand my knowledge this year. And then the final thing that I want to share with you that is so great to do in the winter time when you're making garden plans is to consider new gardening methods. And this is great whether you're a new gardener or whether you're a seasoned gardener. It's just great to have the experience. I'm looking at the straw bale method, where you grow your plants in straw bales, and I'm also looking at the no-dig method, where you put in garden beds without digging. There are so many gardening methods out there. And you can do, I love raised beds, and we all know that raised beds work, right? And we all know that, you know, tilling the ground and putting in a garden, you know, directly into the ground works. So I would automatically gravitate towards those practices. And if you're a seasoned gardener, you probably already gravitate towards those practices. And if you're a new gardener, then I would recommend that you use something very conventional like that, because that way you are assured of getting some crops, right? But looking at other gardening methods, I've watched some YouTubers do some of them online, and they're very interesting and they can be very successful. So I want to try a couple out, right? So I'm probably not going to go ahead and put in like 30 straw bales and try and grow my garden in straw bales. But I am going to maybe get a straw bale or two and try and grow some things in it and see how it goes and just kind of get the experience with it and see, you know, how it works out. Maybe next year I will have learned how to make it even better, or maybe I won't want to do it again. But it's a great time in the winter to start to look into some of those things and consider what it is that you might want to try this spring. So whether you're new to gardening or whether you're a seasoned gardener, I hope that this not very seasoned gardener has shared something of use with you today. If you have any tips or tricks to share with me, I would really appreciate it if you put them down in the comments, because I am new to gardening and I have so much to learn and I would love to learn from you. I hope that you have fun making your garden plans, and I hope that your gardens this year are abundantly bountiful. Thank you so much for being here with me today. You and I are going to get together again, and we're going to do it really soon.